This is the first of my looks at the Hachette, or Hachette, because they're French, part works for DC Heroes and Villains Collection. And this is the first volume. It retails at £1.99 to get you hooked. And it's called Whatever Happened to the Cape Crusader and Other Batman Tales. And I just picked up because I wanted to have a nice hardback collection of the Batman stories that Neil Gaiman had written, and it's got some Alan Moore in here as well. And I thought to myself after I got it, you know what? I've never joined up for a Partworks. Let's give this a go. I've got a lot of gaps in my DC knowledge over the last decade or so, and this should help fill them, for better or worse. Okay, so what have we got here? Well, we've got a hardback collection. If you have been buying hardback or even just collected editions from DC, you'll be aware of the varying quality that they generally have. The quality on this is actually not bad, especially for a book that would normally retail at about £10. It's very tightly bound, as most collections and graphic novels are these days, so there's going to be a wee bit of gutter loss whenever there's a double page spread, but it isn't just glued, it's also sewn binding, so that's a nice wee touch. And it's quite a nicely designed book, and it's a fairly cheap way of just getting the collection of these stories, all of which are worth reading. The first story, Neil Gaiman's Whatever Happened to the Cape Crusader, was written as a two-part story to essentially write the last Batman story before another reboot, and it was to finish off Batman and Detective Comics running over both titles for the last issue of each, as they were going to start as new number ones. Neil Gaiman's remit for this story, as given to him by Dan DiDio, was essentially just to write the last Batman story in much the same way as previously Alan Moore had written the last Superman story for the character before he was rebooted by John Byrne. It's one of these stories that sits there either in continuity or out of continuity, depending on how you want to look at it. And I'm not too big on continuity if it gives us a good story and it stays true to the core characteristics of the actual character that's being written. So yeah, it's a good fun 2-issue to read. Neil Gaiman obviously understands Batman and his rogues gallery, and gives us this nice little 2-issue capper to the classic Bronze Age Batman stories. And I suppose just as Batman was entering what you could probably call, or had entered what you could call, the dark ages of DC Comics, where everything was grim, dark and depressing. So yeah, it's worth, I mean, £1.99, it's worth having just for that story alone. You've got a little short black and white story with artwork by Simon Bisley, which is suitably grotesque, over the top and cartoony at the same time from Bisley. It's a nice little taster of his Batman. We've got a story of Poison Ivy's origin, written by Gaiman and drawn by Mark Buckingham. And it's kind of like, it feels a little bit like a vertical style story. There was at this time, like the late 80s into the 90s, a bit of a crossover between what DC were publishing in their vertical titles and in their mainstream titles. And this has a wee feel of a vertical story. And there's a reprinting of the stories from Secret Origins Special, featuring Gotham's vilest of villains. And the stories in this are set around a psychologist who looks into the backgrounds of the villains, and they tell their own stories, so it's their point of view of their origins. It's got Gaiman writes the bulk of it. Alan Grant, at the time I would say the premier author on the Batman titles, he writes the origin story of the Penguin, drawn by Sam Keith, and there's also the Riddler and Two-Face, with Pat Broderick doing the artwork on the Two-Face story. And these are written by Gaiman and Mark Verheiden in the Two-Face story, and an author who's probably best known for the work he did at Dark Horse or their Aliens and their Predator line at the start when they were producing some really nice film tie-in work. It's worth getting this book just to have a collection of these stories. They are all self-contained, and there's a diversity of styles and approaches in the artwork, which is always nice to see with Batman. My favourite story in here is probably the Alan Moore annual. It's a Batman annual drawn by George Freeman, and it's got a story of Clayface in it, and I think this annual went a long way to helping bring Clayface into the modern DC universe as a villain of some actual worth. It's got a real kind of like operatic Phantom of the Opera like appeal, this annual, and it's again, I'm going to keep saying this, it's another story that's worth £1.99 on its own. There's nice little kind of afterwards stuff with little extras in here. We've got Neil Gaiman's text piece, which I think was an afterwards for the first issue of the Whatever Happened to the Caped Crusader, pointing out what he was trying to do with the story and how it came about. But yeah, there you have it. This is Whatever Happened to the Caped Crusader and Other Batman Tales. If if you're in the UK and you want to get it, you can get it for £1.99 for most places. Yeah, it's worth having. It kind of got me hooked on this. I thought, let's give it a go. The next issue was only £6.99, so in for a penny, in for a pound, as they say. And I'm going to be having a look at that soon. It's as you can see here, it's a Harley Quinn, What in the City. Now, I haven't read these. This is going to be new to me. You're going to be seeing exactly what I think of Harley Quinn in the second video in this series. If these books are up to the same quality as this one, I'm probably in this for the long haul. So if you like this video and you want to see me review the entire run of this Partworks, please subscribe to the channel and hit the like on this video. That would be much appreciated. Thank you.